As I said in the open, the shutdown tentatively scheduled for votes in the House, provided they don't make any changes to that Senate bill on shutting down the shutdown. Who better to talk to than Chief Economic Strategist from Annex Wealth Management, Brian Jacobsen, my friend, and all-around smart guy. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Great to be here.
All right, so as somebody who looks at these things every day of his life, probably, hopefully not every day, because everybody needs time off, Brian. We know this, right?
Well, every day, multiple times a day. What can I say?
Right. So as you see it, let's talk about the sort of the politics of it, or at least the nuts and bolts of it. Do you get the sense that this will be resolved from the sort of the legislative side today?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is our expectation, is that this will be voted on today. It will pass. In fact, when we look at prediction markets, there's almost like a contract for everything out there. It seems like it is a very high probability that it will pass. Now, in terms of how quickly does it take then to get the gears of government running again? It's kind of like an old jalopy, I think, in terms of needing a little bit of a kickstart. You have to check the carburetor, maybe, turn a crank here or there. So it could take a while. But at least legislatively, it does seem like they'll be able to get this across the finish line.
So you stole my thunder a little bit, because I was going to ask you sort of the mechanization to sort of get back to normal, whatever normal is defined in Washington, D.C. But for those who are invested, for those who are looking at retirement or even just saving their money or investing in the markets to sort of advance their future retirement, what is the messaging from this shutdown end to those folks that we're going to get back to normal here?
Well, at least normal for now. If you look at the history of shutdowns, they oftentimes happen in clusters. They get these agreements to reopen, but then there's a fairly tight deadline for when funding expires again, and then you just kind of see Groundhog's Day where it's all over again. And in fact, with this one, there are a few programs that will be fully funded until September 30th, so the rest of the fiscal year. So things like, SNAP benefits, if we look at the agreement for no longer having the reduction in force, no longer having to worry about will furloughed workers be paid back pay or not. So those things fully funded, but everything else, right, it has basically an end of January expiration date. And so this could be like what we saw in the late 1970s, oftentimes in the 1980s, where you have a protracted shutdown to begin with. And then you almost have kind of like these rolling periodic shutdowns that might last a few days until they cobble together some sort of agreement again.
So we often talk about, and you have done this with me, and certainly Dave Spano, CEO of Annex Wealth Management, about the three-legged stool when it comes to your financial plan. But if you look at the three-legged stool of some of the decisions being made in Washington, we have the tax cut extension, we have the shutdown hopefully ending today. And the third piece, you just sort of alluded to that, is sort of health care and policy going forward. If those things fall into place, it suggests that for investors and people looking at their financial investments and plans, could be a stabler, and that's always a guess, stabler 2026.
Well, that is the hope, is that we could see that, but it is a midterm year. And just historically, when we look at how the market behaves in midterm elections years, it does tend to be a little bit choppier. And I mean, maybe this is a variety of other reasons, but if you think about what oftentimes happens is coming out of a presidential election, you have a lot of optimism. We saw that initially. Then you have a little bit of reality striking in as far as the costs of making adjustments. Midterm year, oftentimes the party in power ends up losing some seats in the House and the Senate. And so it introduces a new type of uncertainty where it might be that longer term, what's going to get done, if anything, over the next 2 years? And will there then be a change of leadership when we're looking out at the end of that 2-year cycle? So in terms of with the government funding and the tax code, yes, we're going to have almost a more certainty there, but it introduces a new type of uncertainty that the market tends to then shift its attention to.
Let's talk short term. What has been, if any, the immediate market reaction to the shutdown potentially ending today?
Yeah, a lot more enthusiasm over that, and I think understandably so, because when we think about how some of the stocks might behave, the exposure to consumer staples in terms of the SNAP benefits, if you look at the travel delays, what that's causing, which isn't just about like hotels and airlines. People travel for business, and if there's delays there, the deals that aren't getting done, the business that's not being conducted. So we have seen some of that reopening enthusiasm. Now, keep in mind, this has been very well telegraphed. The market moves in anticipation of these things. So sometimes you can get this phenomenon where there's almost like this buy the rumor and sell the news kind of thing where people get excited about it, but then the focus shifts to, our AI stock's in a bubble. What's growth like? So, there's always something to worry about.
Chief Economist and Chief Economic Strategist for Annex Wealth Management, Brian Jacobsen, joining us on Point Taken on 620 WTMJ. In your mind, looking at all these things every day, what are the things, because I not talking about just short-term stuff, but a little bit longer play is what happens to interest rates, the Fed policy, because we know that during the shutdown, some of the numbers they base these decisions on aren't readily available or aren't being able to be put together and assessed, probably more importantly, across the country. In that term, in that number, as far as interest rates and Fed policy, are you confident that sort of will fix itself as we get back to business?
We should be getting more of those data releases rolling out maybe as soon as next week, Tuesday, where the jobs report for the month of September, they had the data and they were just a couple days away from releasing it, but then you had the shutdown, so they couldn't. Now, that number might come out, and based upon other information, we always like to kind of triangulate on what these readings are and how reliable are the official statistics relative to alternative data sources. And it does suggest that maybe September we did see a slight improvement in the labor market, but then another kind of slight pullback then in October, almost like a bouncing ball where it goes up, it goes down a little bit. And that type of dynamic, in my mind, would suggest that the Fed should still be on track to cut in December. But most of the Fed officials, they didn't want to pre-commit to it because they don't know what that data is going to say.
Your best educated guess is, though, you think they will keep those cuts coming?
I do. The issue to me is more along the lines of, will they then cut in 2026? Will they take a meeting off? Most likely that is the case. They think that they are getting interest rates down to sort of this, what they would consider a more neutral level. They are still restrictive. It's restricting economic activity. And if they do one more cut, maybe two, then that would be sort of a sweet spot for the long term. And so if the economic momentum shows that it's not deteriorating, then they could say, all right, we're going to do one more and then we're going to be done.
Well, let's start with the baby step part. Let's get the shutdown net in, and then we can start moving forward on the rest. Brian Jacobsen, Chief Economic Strategist for Annex Wealth Management. Always enjoy the sharing of your wisdom, Brian.
Yep, great being here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, so if you want more wisdom, and tax planning is the subject, you can review what tasks you need to prioritize and what might require attention in an upcoming, this is next Tuesday, so I'll be there, Annex Wealth Management webinar with Director of Financial Planning Eric Strom, Tom Burkholz, Senior Financial Planner Team Lead, smart guy as well, and yours truly, next Tuesday, November 18th at 1 p.m. I got to hustle out of here, get over to their beautiful studios, and you can register right now. Visit WTMJ.com, just find the Annex webinar tab, and you can just go to AnnexWealth.com. That's where you get started anyway, and click on the Advanced tab, and you'll find out all the information. You can sign up for some other ones as well. It's a great resource, and it's a great way to, as they say, get started. And while you're there, look around. Might change your financial future. Annex Wealth Management. Quick break.